Mario and Luigi Brothership is not a 5. Look, I've been waiting a while to make a video on this, and I said, you know what, I like to give everybody's opinion a chance, you know? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and before I wanted to go against it and try to see what was going on with this game, I wanted to actually finish the game, not just finish it, 100% complete it. See every possible aspect that this game has to offer, and I did that. I collected everything, done everything, seen every island, everything you could possibly do in this game, every single side quest before they expired, every challenge, every mission. And I finally am able to talk about this. Yes, I'm talking about IGN's score of a 5 out of 10. So what I decided to do is actually pull up the review and go piece by piece, bar for bar, if you will, and kind of discuss everything that they talked about, all the major points, and if I agreed with them or disagreed with them. Yes, there's going to be some I agree with, of course, but there's a lot that I disagree with, and I'm going to be talking about pretty much what I think of this game overall. This isn't my full 100% review. I plan on posting one. It's going to be over 2 hours, I'm telling you. It's going to be a hefty video because there's so much that I want to dive into individually. But no, I'm just going to be talking about IGN score and how I just straight up disagree with a lot of it, but let's dive in. IGN starts off by saying it's the worst of the RPGs for Mario that we've gotten recently, meaning that of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door remake and the Mario RPG remake, and I would probably have to agree with this. I think it's definitely the worst of the three, but they made it seem like it is way worse than those two, and it's just absolutely a lot lower. I don't think it's anything crazy like that. This game is still a great game. I just think you're going up against two legends here in the Mario RPG world. This is a remake of one of the greatest Paper Mario games of all time. This is a remake of one of the greatest Nintendo RPGs of all time. So it's hard to go against those two games. Even for it being a new original game, they just remade amazing games of the past, so that one's hard to compare this one. But they start out the review saying it fails to recapture the magic of old games, and I completely disagree with this. This isn't Paper Jam. This isn't, basic NPCs and Bowser minions everywhere. No, you have unique characters, a unique world, unique islands to visit, unique bros moves with some returning. I mean, it has uniqueness around every single corner. I don't even know where this is coming from. It feels like a Mario and Luigi game still. It doesn't feel different. It doesn't feel like it's not trying to be like it used to be. There's some things that it's changed, and it's for better or worse, and we'll get into those later on. But I definitely still felt the magic of Mario and Luigi. Especially, like I said, I thought the story was great, and the ending of the game just felt so Mario and Luigi to me. I feel like they handled it really well. Acquire coming in and stepping up to the job for Alpha Dream is definitely something that I didn't think they'd do as well as they did, and it feels like a Mario and Luigi game. Something else they mentioned is chatty dialogue, but I'm like, it's an RPG. Honestly, I've played a couple of RPGs that have way more dialogue than this game. I mean, way more. And I know some of it is just chatty dialogue to be chatty dialogue, but I actually found it to be funny. I laughed a lot of times at the jokes, and I actually really was intrigued into what they were saying and the little stories on each island and, the stories surrounding those. I didn't feel like it was chatty that much at all. In fact, I loved listening to the conversations and reading them, and I don't know how this was a complaint. I mean, once again, it's an RPG, and I feel like it has significantly less chatty dialogue than some others that I've played. So yeah, I don't get that one. In fact, the only character in the entire game that I just couldn't stand to read their dialogue was the Grampy Turnips. It was just stupid, and none of it made sense. It wasn't funny, and it just felt like a drag and went on for too long for way too many turnips. I didn't want to hear him. I almost every single time just skipped those dialogues. That's my only complaint when it comes to dialogue. In fact, there's a lot of really cool references sometimes in the dialogue where they'll reference games like Paper Mario, and they even referenced Starlo talking to Bowser as Chippy as if they're friends still from Bowser's Inside Story, which is a really fun callback, and Bowser's kind of come on in, Chippy, but is also annoyed by Chippy, or Starlo. It's hard to get the name right because Bowser calls her a completely different name because of that game. But anyways, yeah, it has some fun callbacks and stuff, and I thought it was fun to read. Another complaint IGN had was overbearing hand-holding. And once again, I don't really feel like this was the case. The only thing I will say is, yes, it did feel like sometimes when they panned around the area, like IGN did mention, where they show where you need to go or what you need to do. I feel like this is more bloating though. I feel like it never really made it easier for me. It didn't make me say, oh, now I know what to do. It was more along the lines of, okay, you're just kind of padding things out. And maybe that's the problem. There is bloat in this game. There's a lot of things that are in this game for the sake of just making this game longer, so I get that, but I didn't find these overbearing hand-holding. In fact, I feel like it was one of the quickest starts in the series. There wasn't long drug-out tutorials of how to attack anymore. It was a quick text box and it was over. Normally, they'll have a character in the background talking to the bros and stuff, telling them how to use each thing, pausing the screen right before you land or attack, or right before you dodge an attack. I feel like IGN really didn't play some of these older games or remember these tutorials. Like Dream Team, for instance, was so bad. It wasn't just 5 hours to start the game. It felt like 5 hours of learning how to play the game before you could actually play that game. I will take bloatedness over just constant tutorials, and that's what it felt like Dream Team was when you start the game. This wasn't that. I feel like it never really held your hand, and in fact, there's some bosses and enemies that definitely does get pretty difficult, and they keep calling it baby's first RPG. I did not get that at all. Yes, the game is overall still an easy game in comparison to maybe some other Mario and Luigi games, but I never felt like it was holding my hand. I will say, thanks to that bloat, it does take a while to actually get started, unfortunately. You'll be doing some very basic enemy attacks, and you'll also be waiting to get your hammers for like 4 to 5 hours, which is a long time, and I think that is an issue. It's just that bloatedness, but it never came across as hand-holdy, if anything. Next up, IGN said that the fetch quests are boring, and yes, this is probably one of the first things that I'm gonna have to agree with. A majority of them are very boring, where you're just going to one island, grabbing something from one character, taking it to another island. I wish there were more challenges or like actual things that you had to do with your bros moves or something when you go to these characters, but no, a lot of them are just that, simple fetch quests. Now, some of them are like boss battling, like battling harder versions or glom versions of those bosses, or maybe glom versions or powerful versions of certain enemies that have a specific weak point that you have to learn. Those were pretty cool, and I actually enjoyed those, but for the most part, a lot of the quests are just boring little things that you have to do on the side. However, there are some quests that actually home some story to them and add some story to some of the characters and some of the overall game, and if you miss them, you might miss some important character interactions, like I previously just mentioned with Bowser and Starlo. IGN said that ship sailing is boring, and yes, I agree. You're not even really controlling the ship. It doesn't feel like Wind Waker. It doesn't have to, but it does feel less like exploring and rather just managing your map well. You know what I mean? You pick a destination, you let the boat travel for itself, and then you go do stuff until the boat gets there. It takes a while before you can get the speed up option in order to go faster with the boat, which makes it even worse when you're going so slow. And also, you don't even get to warp around the map and fast travel until like the very, very, very end of the game, which is so pointless when a lot of the side quests actually disappear and go away. What's the point of saving it until now? And these could have been used when there's a lot of side quests that had you go from one side of the ocean to the other. That was very annoying and definitely could have used fast travel back then. So overall, yeah, the whole ship thing, it was more of just a cool caveat on the side and something that was cool to watch as you're like in a world and watching the ship actually move in real time. Another thing IGN says is that it's bloated and has a long runtime, but once again, it's an RPG. I feel like people would have complained if this game was really short, and that's one of the biggest complaints with Mario games in general, is that they're just way too short. Yeah, it's a long game, and I feel like it needed to be a long game. Now, some of the parts of the game did just stretch it out for the sake of stretching it out. Once again, that bloat with some just side quests that were just pointless and meaningless, and sometimes you're just returning to past islands for some story beats that just doesn't seem all that interesting, but they don't even mention one time the reward for reaching the end of the game. Like, they don't even talk about the end of the game and the payoff. It's massive. It is a great ending, probably one of the best endings I've ever seen from a Mario game. And they didn't mention it even once. So yes, the game is bloated, but I feel like it has a really, really good payoff. They say that the writing and story doesn't land. I disagree. I actually really enjoyed listening to character interactions. Like I said before, I think it's very funny. Besides the Grampy Turnip stuff, I think it's just overdone and it's just not interesting. I'm tired of listening to them yap. But the story is easily one of the best stories that I think we've gotten since Super Paper Mario on the Wii. That tells you how good the story is. It actually dives deep. It can come off as a little corny with the whole pond thing, but I think the way they actually utilize it for the end of the game as well is so perfectly done. I think they actually used a corny concept and made it into the best possible story that they possibly could. I love this story, and once again, I feel like people are forgetting the stories that we used to have, where it's normally go around all the areas, collect some powerful thing, break into the final castle, and defeat the boss. It's kind of been the premise of everything that we've gotten so far from Mario and Luigi games, outside of maybe like Partners in Time, which actually incorporated like aliens and time travel, which was really good as well. But this one, to me, is probably my favorite story in the series now. IGN hates the plug-themed characters. Once again, this has to be just a weird nitpick, because what? We finally got away from all Toads. We have unique characters, and I think their theming is really cool, as all of them are this themed power outlet type of thing. And even like the enemies and creatures all have something to do with electricity for the most part, outside of a couple. But I really like this. I think this is something that we've been begging for, is unique characterization like this. And somehow they think this is bad. Like, do you want to go back to all Toads from Paper Jam, or just all Bowser's minions all over the place? I thought this was handled great. I love the characters in this game. I actually think I like them even more than the characters that we've gotten in games like Dream Team, like the Pilo characters and stuff. I think these actually look a lot better. IGN also claims that the game has bland areas and talks about Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside story as an example of having unique ones, thanks to the fact that they run in the inside of Bowser's body. This is a big no, in my opinion. I think there are a lot of islands in this game that have some really unique themes, like Offandin, which is this really cool ruins-themed area that's taken over by Bowser and his minions, and there's a cool cave underground network and stuff that you get to explore. The lighthouses are really fun as you make your way to the top. There's lots of other really cool themes as well, without getting into deep spoilers of this game. I don't want to dive into it, but there's a jellyfish-themed one if you've been there already. It's really, really pretty, really cool looking, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. There are some islands that repeat some themes a little bit, like the fire and ice area of the ocean. There's just a lot of islands like that, so I get it to that extent. But if you once again look back at past Mario and Luigi games, every Mario and Luigi game outside of Superstar Saga had super bland areas. Bowser's Inside story had bland areas on the outside world. It was just basic woods, a basic beach, and basic plains with some caves and stuff. There was nothing special going on, and they didn't even have theming to them. It was like the most basic woods and stuff like that. Yes, the inside of Bowser's body was unique, but for the most part, it was just one area that was copy and pasted in all the other different areas, but in different colors to let you know that you were in different parts of his body. Yes, the inside was cool, the world itself wasn't that cool. And the same thing with Dream Team. I felt like the worlds was just once again more forest, you know, another mountain, another desert, stuff like that. And Paper Jam, don't even get me started. I mean, this is literally the Paper Jam world map. It looks like a Mario golf course. Like, what even is that? So yeah, I think Partners in Time probably is close. I mean, there's some areas even in that game where they're kind of basic. They do a little better in certain spots, but yes, definitely Superstar Saga has the best locations. I feel like they absolutely go berserk with them, but this one is definitely a close second in my opinion. Like, what are they supposed to do? These are islands floating on the water. Like, they have to have some sort of theme that makes sense for an island in the water that was once connected to a supercontinent. So yeah, I mean, I feel like they did a really good job with the designs of the islands. Personally, I have no problem. Like, literally, Merry-Go Island is this cool theme park with a giant maze, and Lotta Coins Island is this giant city. I mean, what else are they supposed to do? I mean, this is something that was very unique for some islands in the water. IGN claimed that the game runs horrendous, and it's one of the worst running games on the Switch, and it's so bad they like urge you to not play on the television. It had some bad moments, but it was never as bad as they're making it seem. They're making it seem like it was borderline unplayable, and as much as they complained about it. Yes, I do think it's time for Switch 2. I've been saying this. I feel like every game I've been playing has some type of noticeable lag or something, or stutter, and I'm tired of the 30 frames per second, or even if it's not locked, it's just fluctuating up and down. It's really annoying. I've experienced maybe 2 islands, though, that had bad performance, and then a big chunk at the end of the game. So, is it there? Yes. Is it noticeable? Yes, but it's not a game breaker. It's not something that was like, out of my 50 hours, almost 60 hours of playing through this game, I only noticed it probably around 10 of those hours. On like a serious note, probably 2 of those hours. And those times probably aren't even that accurate either. I feel like most of the time it was when something happened to an area or to an island, like when Garumbala started smashing all the blocks, it started getting real bad, or certain sections in Bowser's Castle, it started getting kind of chunky as well. There was some areas that just did not run well, and it just definitely was noticeable, I will say. So it's partially agree with this one, partially disagree. It didn't ruin the experience. It wasn't something that I was just sitting there like, I can't get through this game. It definitely worked for the most part. There is just some areas that you can tell the Switch is definitely showing its age. IGN claims that Luigi being an NPC this time around instead of an actual playable character is bad. And yeah, I completely agree here, probably in every aspect. Not being able to control Luigi does not feel like a Mario and Luigi game. Being able to jump with both Mario and Luigi in the overworld and stuff, it feels strange, where Luigi just kind of lags behind and walks behind Mario and does his own thing for the most part. You pretty much just treat him like Mario's personal servant and just have him slave around, picking things up from Mario or hitting things. I mean, you don't have to collect or do anything in this game. You can have Luigi do it all for you without you even having to lift a finger, besides pressing the L button for him to do those things. But like, yeah, there's a couple instances as well where he'll get stuck somewhere and I have to go back and find him, or it will drag me back to go meet up with Luigi after I made progress somewhere instead of just bringing Luigi to me. And just also moments where they use Luigi's logic and just do stupid things with it. Like Luigi will go through this stupid animation and start thinking of what he wants to do just for him to say, oh, hey, bro, I'm going to collect these coins and you collect those, or something else that's just completely stupid and he could have just did it without us having to go through that animation. So I completely agree with Luigi. I think they did Luigi a little dirty in this game, and I feel like he doesn't really feel like he's a playable character here outside of battling. IGN's only real positive is that they love the combat, and the plug system is really, really good with tons of great bros attacks, and I completely agree. I think everything's really good here, but I will have one actual gripe I had with the battling, because the one part that they did really good with Luigi is his logic in battling. I wish we had more Luigi's logic situations, and that also goes with the fact that I just wish there were more bosses in order to have those situations with. I've made this number count before, but Mario and Luigi Brothership has significantly less bosses than every single other game in the franchise. There are only 12 bosses in Mario and Luigi Brothership. Let me go through the other games real quick. Superstar Saga around 28, Partners in Time around 19, Bowser's Inside Story around 24, Dream Team around 25, and Paper Jam around 20. So yeah, they definitely slept on the bosses, and you can feel it. There's a lot of situations and areas where you think a boss is coming, and it never comes. And instead, you're going like 7, 8, 9 hours into a game, still no boss battles as you're going through story and stuff, and you're just waiting and waiting for the next boss battle. It is kind of annoying, and it's something that I definitely wish was fixed. It's actually something that I feel like Nintendo has been struggling with a lot lately. It's just having good and also a good amount of bosses in their games. I thought the bosses in Echoes of Wisdom could have been handled a lot better thanks to the whole Echo system, and also Mario Bros. Wonder that had like no boss battles outside of a couple Bowser Jr. fights. And I think a lot of us were not really satisfied by Tears of the Kingdom's bosses for the most part. But yeah, that's a video for another time. And finally, IGN complains that the third part of the game towards the end is a complete slog with more fetch quests. It bothers me that they have not even talked about the ending. Like, was Nintendo very strict to the point where they couldn't even say that the ending was good? Because how? Like, how was that not even brought up at least a little bit? Or were they not allowed to talk about it? Because yes, the ending did have a lot of backtracking and going back. I personally love collecting the bonds and going back, and a lot of the areas opened up new parts of the stage that you haven't seen before. For instance, Bowser's Castle opens up a complete new area for you to explore when you go back to revisit for a specific item. I believe Heat Freeze Island or one of those hot or ice islands opens up a new area as well thanks to a new Bros move that you're able to get. So yes, there are new spots to explore. Some of them are pretty much the same. Like, for instance, you go back to Twisty Island and experience the same thing over again, but just with harder enemies. But the whole final segment of the game, in my opinion, is beautifully crafted. I don't know how in the world this is just not brought up in a review of the video game, because an ending is one of the most important parts for a video game. And maybe the start wasn't as great and it took a little long to get started, but the ending was so worth it. The payoff was amazing. Please play this game all the way through and you tell me what you think of the end of the game. So overall, with about 15 total complaints that IGN had about this game, I think I disagreed with around 8 of them. And yeah, that's a lot. I had agreed with 7 though. But overall, it's hard to believe that this is somebody that's played the past Mario and Luigi games, because a lot of their complaints is stuff that's been problems with those games as well. And a lot of those games got really good reviews, a lot better than a 5. So of course, like I said, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But when I just saw a 5, it struck me as, oh, this is not a good game. And I've had some people tell me that a 5 out of 10 is just middle of the road. And yes, normally it is, but when you look at a studio who generally gives middle of the road games around a 7, 6 at the lowest, a 5 is generally considered pretty bad. In fact, they even labeled the 5 as mediocre. That's not good. That's not even okay. Mediocre, in my opinion, is bad. And if this was just some opinion of some ordinary person, I wouldn't have cared less. But the fact that it's a major game publication and one that a lot of people do trust for its reviews, which you shouldn't, make your own reviews yourself, try the game out and see how you like it. But I know a lot of people can't afford to always do that, so they want to watch reviews to see if it's worth buying. This also could be directly related to the reason why the sales weren't as strong for the first week. And maybe a lot of people just were turned off by seeing a Mario game of all get a 5 out of 10. I personally do not agree with the 5 out of 10. I don't whatsoever. I think this is a great game with a really fun and unique story with unique characters and worlds to explore, a really good battle system, and overall a fun and long runtime, but does suffer from some things like the lack of Luigi being playable in a lot of the game, also very long drug out side quests that aren't that exciting, and a kind of average sailing at the sea moment. But overall, I think this is a really good Mario & Luigi game. In fact, it's one of my favorite in the series. Yeah, I still think I would put it over a game like Paper Jam, even Dream Team, I would place it over. Very close to Superstar Saga as well. I still hold Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story a little above this one, but this one's right in the middle of the pack probably for me, which is a really good thing. And I hardly give out number reviews, but if I had to give it a review overall, I'd probably give it around a high 7 to a low 8. If I had to really pinpoint it, I'd say for me this game was about an 8.2. I still think there's a lot that they could have done to make it a lot higher for me. I'd say in between like a 7.8 and an 8.2 is where I would give my ranking of this game. That's definitely not a 5. But I leave it to you guys. What do you think this game should have gotten? What review do you give it, and what score do you give it out of 10? Let me know your pros and cons down below. I'm very interested in hearing what you guys have to say, and do you agree or disagree with my takes against IGN? Thank you so much for tuning in, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See ya, guys.